A champ is a champ, whether he's slugging out home runs on the baseball diamond, making touchdowns on the gridiron, or proving a mastery of water sports. The Kingdom of the Sea. Your guide is Colonel John D. Craig, author, explorer, adventurer, and a champion of sorts in his own way when it concerns the highways and byways of the seven seas. I'm your host, Bob Stevenson. Whether it's your high school debating team or the Olympics, these prizes symbolize achievement in open competition. We call the winners champions, and rightly so. But there are other champions, men, women, and children too, who have proven their superiority in various endeavors without the benefit of gold cups or medals or myrtle wreaths. Water champs, we call them. And to pay them the homage due, here is our man of the sea himself, Colonel John D. Craig.
You've summed it up so neatly, Bob. There's little I can add to what you've just said. Now, these people that Bob is talking about have taken up various water sports pertaining to our Kingdom of the Sea, not necessarily in competition with others, but primarily for the sheer joy and exhilaration they derive from the sport, whether it's water skiing, body surfing, high diving, or just old-fashioned clowning.
I'm glad you included clowning, Colonel, because they seem to be our unsung heroes. They lend so much color and enjoyment to aquatic events and frequently perform hazardous stunts, but they seldom receive the credit they deserve. How do you account for this?
Well, there are a number of reasons for this, Bob. In the first place, these clowns perform so smoothly, making their stunts look so simple, we get the feeling they're not interested in any special mention.
You referred to water skiing, body surfing, and high diving, but there must be many more water sports.
The list is long, and it includes nearly every activity over, under, and across the surface of our waterways. There's log rolling near lumber camps, ice skating in our frozen rivers and lakes, gymnastics on the beaches, and several others. You know, I think our viewing audience would be more interested in seeing them than hearing about them. So let's see some of these water champs. High in popularity among water sports and growing more popular in leaps and bounds is water skiing. Here is Pete Peterson, a former lifeguard and a world champion, demonstrating his prowess on skis around the breakwater at Santa Monica Bay.
Colonel, I'm curious about that word ski. I've heard it pronounced she from time to time.
The word originally came from the Icelanders, Bob, to the best of my knowledge, and it means a piece of wood. It is pronounced either ski or she, but the former pronunciation seems to be the more common in America. This zigzagging that Pete's doing is called slalom, a term also used in snow skiing. At 35 miles an hour, you better not make any miscalculations. But for him, it's just warming up practice. In case you don't have a motorboat handy, Pete shows you another way. Get hold of a helicopter.
Gosh, that prop lash alone, I think, would be enough to throw me.
Instead of skiing around an obstacle, you just leave it to the pilot, and ups-a-daisy he goes. Here's a neat trick if your insurance is all paid up. A fast-moving motorboat, Patty Saunders, and Pete's strong arms. And I don't have to remind you that the stunt calls for split-second timing. Getting back into the boat might present a problem to some people, but not to Patty. Going at full speed, Patty makes this look as easy as walking up an escalator. Here's the flying saucer stunt, with Pete making a 360-degree turn, a feat that calls for perfect balance while towed at top speed.
What's he up to, Colonel? He let go of that tow rope.
He's just demonstrating what we call freeboarding, sliding down the constant hill in the wake of the boat. It's like a constant surf that never runs its full course. And as an added attraction, he does it on a chair. For a little while, that is. But you can't keep a good man down. And here he is on a single ski, a perfect landing, a change of shoes, and here he goes again.
Seems to have picked up a hitchhiker.
That's 8-year-old Teddy Taylor, an up-and-coming water skier of prominence. Here's something Pete has pulled out of his bag of tricks, which I believe is being seen for the first time on television, the Human Surfboard.
You don't suppose he'd like to rent himself out for a spin around the bay?
You'd better stick to the standard surfboard, Bob, like these islanders. You recognize Diamond Head? Here, with the natural surge of the surf, they ride the waves like a bunch of bronco busters at a rodeo. And a fall can be just as dangerous. The too high standing sitting and the too high standing can be seen among the performers. While this surf may not compare with the one at Makaha, it's still dangerous and always a challenge. For the sake of a little variety, Margie Calhoun and Pete are doing a little water skiing on surfboards.
It's easy to see why water skiing's so popular, Colonel. It's a thrill, a challenge to the imagination, just thinking up new stunts.
For a change of pace, Bob, let's meet another breed of water champs, some divers, high and fancy. Here are Russ Saunders and Billy Service, acknowledged as two of the champs in this field. They demonstrate dives called for in competition. The cutaway double jackknife, the half twist swan, the half gainer, The 2.5 cutaway. The 2.5 back in tuck position. The 2.5 cutaway in tuck position. The running forward 1.5 with full twist. The 3.5 forward somersault. And as a topper, the neatest trick of the year, the handstand cutaway in 1 in reverse. The last, of course, with a small assist from the cameraman.
Colonel, is there any way we can run that again?
Sorry, Bob, but time and tide and television wait for no man. This officially is the Santa Monica Recreation Playground, but to anyone who has been here, it is better known as Muscle Beach, and we don't mean the oyster or the clam, but the biceps and triceps muscles. Thousands gather here daily to watch amateur and professional acrobats and athletes work out, including many of our national champs, yes, and even world champs. Here's Johnny Robinson, for example, national high bar champion, doing the giant swing with crossover. And for a little levity, Johnny is making like a monkey. And believe me, this is not as simple as it looks.
I've always had a warm spot for these clowns, Colonel, ever since my kid days at the circus. And you know, they never seem to get the recognition they deserve. They do make some of the most difficult stunts look so easy, don't they?
They surely do. Lee Thompson, one of the greatest double bar performers, is doing the flyaway on the high bar. In private life, he's a railroad engineer. And here is Russ again on the teeterboard with Patty, flipping her into the air and catching her so neatly in this adagio routine. We would appreciate this act more if we could have seen them rehearsing it again and again, with many a narrow escape from broken bones and other bruises until they perfected the timing. As in the case of the high divers, each of these stunts is clearly prescribed and must meet with all the rules and regulations before being acceptable in competition.
The fellow on the receiving end must be pretty good himself.
You're so right, Bob. That's your namesake, Bob Gordon, who is an outstanding thrower as well as a receiver. He's dependable and gives a lot of confidence to the others. They let themselves go without any worry about what's going to happen after they do. The cameraman went high to catch this back dive to a fish, as this act is called, giving us a bird's eye view. They demonstrate here all the grace and form of a ballet troupe without benefit of the toe shoes. They handle the girl like a rag doll, almost twisting her into a pretzel and throwing her back and forth like a sack of sawdust. but you can be sure everything is worked out with precision. Distance measured to the inch and timing to the split second.
Do you have to be double jointed for these acts, Colonel?
Not necessarily, but it helps. In the case of contortionists, they must be double jointed, if they have any joints at all.
Now, there's something I've always enjoyed, swinging through the air with the greatest of ease.
You must be thinking of the man on that flying trapeze. This man is working out on the low rings. It isn't enough to do some of these difficult stunts while swinging. He has some tricky twists after he lets go, like this double somersault and half twist. Barry happens to be one of the greatest exponents of the low rings, and here he is demonstrating what he calls the fliffus. Don't ask me why they gave it that name, Bob, because I just don't know the answer. It's a double somersault and a half twist, one of the most difficult stunts to complete.
Landing on that sand doesn't make the trick any easier. Fella could get really hurt, twist an ankle or break a leg, couldn't he?
Well, in competition, the landing is included in the scoring. For a real thrill, the high rings are close double to the man on the flying trapeze. You really fly through the air with the greatest of ease. If you ever want to discover muscles you didn't know you had, Bob, try a little workout on these high rings. They'll bring them out quickly, but have the liniment handy.
I've got an aching back just watching this, Colonel.
Well, Bob, a little skin diving will put you back in condition.
No, Colonel, I still don't think I'd be able to do those giant swings and pull-ups.
Well, that chap happens to be Ferris, the world's greatest athlete on the high rings. One of his most spectacular stunts is the swinging iron cross, which few people in the world can perform. Incidentally, a strange ruling in gymnastics, particularly in the Olympics, serves to penalize a specialist like Ferris in favor of the all-round gymnast. It isn't enough to become the world's greatest high ring performer or gain perfection in any of the other many branches of gymnastics. You must excel in all of them, including the horizontal bar, the parallel bars, the horse, and many more before you can be declared a winner.
That's one sport that's really universal, isn't it, Colonel?
That's right, Bob. Originally, it signified a system of exercises for the purpose of promoting health and developing the body. The word gymnasium is derived from the fact that the competitors were naked, especially in Greece.
Apparently, there's no age limit.
That's April Atkins, age 8, who has the makings of a world champ. From the moment he discovered her, Russ Saunders felt she was a natural and started to train her. Here's a youngster that will bear watching. He's little Linwood Jansen, age 2.5. This routine, the straight body press to a handstand, takes an adult as long as 5 years to perfect.
You know, Colonel, after seeing all these water champs in action, I think there should be a Hall of Fame for them, similar to the Baseball Hall of Fame or the one for gridiron champs.
That's not a bad idea, Bob. King Neptune's Hall of Fame. We wouldn't have any trouble selecting eligible members, would we?
Well, I hereby nominate you, a committee of one, to start the ball rolling.
Not so fast, Bob. Let's wait until we find out how many others are interested in the suggestion. In the meantime, let's show our fans the demonstration we cooked up for them for this occasion. We had several requests from would-be skin divers to help them select appropriate outfits. So here's a young lady on just such a mission. Most sporting goods stores handle this equipment, and Joan selected Bell Aqua swim aids on her shopping tour. Bill Barada, a pioneer skin diver, is helping her select an outfit. You test it by placing it over your nose and inhaling. If a vacuum is formed, a perfect seal occurs, and the plate adheres to the face. There's no need of using the strap in the test. Just exhale and the faceplate is released. The selection of a snorkel is next. It should be made of rubber so that it will bend and not foul up in the kelp. The soft rubber mouthpiece should be comfortable and will last a long time if you keep it out of the sun when not in use. Flippers are chosen with as much the same care as in the purchase of a pair of shoes, for fit and comfort. If possible, they should be tried out in a pool to make sure they don't chafe. Swim fins are invaluable, especially when you're loaded down with spear guns and cameras and don't have free use of your arms for swimming. For the more ambitious skin diver who wants to stay under for longer periods, this tank and regulator make it possible to do so. The breathing valve or regulator is a matter of personal preference, but the important thing is to make sure it works. Bill is showing Joan the two-stage or double diaphragm regulator. When submerged, the two-stage makes it impossible to inhale water instead of air. A non-return valve prevents the water from entering the breathing tube in the event the mouthpiece is jarred from place. A dry suit will keep you dry but not warm, hence some underwear is highly recommended, similar to that used by snow skiers. If you prefer the wet suit, then the underwear is not needed. The water that gets between the suit and the skin is warm to body temperature. You stay comfortable, even if you're swimming in very cold water. A tight-fitting rubber cap is worn with the wet suit. The material should be durable, preferably with a tough coating of pliabel on both sides of the neoprene material. Weighted belts are a must, especially with exposure suits which are unusually buoyant. The amount of weight depends on the individual. A young miss weighing about 110 pounds would require a belt weighing from 8 to 10 pounds. But regardless of the outfit you select, there is one rule you must be sure to follow, and that is, try it out in a pool before you venture out into the sea.
Now, seeing this demonstration reminds me of that old Chinese saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
Speaking of Chinese saying, a hint of next adventure keeps audience tuned in.
Sooner said, sooner done. On behalf of Colonel Craig and our sponsor, this is your host, Bob Stevenson, thanking you, ladies and gentlemen, and inviting you to be with us again on our next visit to the Kingdom of the Sea.